we ready? Hi, buenas tardes, good afternoon. How is everyone? Great, well, welcome on behalf of Open Channels, which is a global learning community of practitioners, producers, researchers, and students of Caribbean popular theater, and Canoa, which is hosting us in their amazing space. Canoa stands for the Caribbean and New Orleanian Arts, which is great. Kind of these two organizations are together because both of us want to highlight the ties that bind between the Gulf South and the greater Caribbean. My name is Carolina Caballero. I'm a professor of the practice at Tulane University. I'm also Associate Director of the Cuban and Caribbean Studies Institute, and I'm so excited to have y'all, and I'm so excited to be able to be your MC for this afternoon's kind of event. I'm going to try to stay out of the way as much as possible. I'll be here to introduce our speakers and kind of get us moving along and be in charge of the Q&A. But before we get started, I want to introduce Kelly White, who is going to be doing the blessing for us. Kelly is born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana. She is a performer, choreographer, researcher, and dance educator. She holds a BFA in dance performance and choreography from the University of Southern Mississippi and an MA in dance education from New York University. She co-founded and is the director of Evolve Diaspora, where she creates weekend intensive culturally emergent trips and community classes for professional dancers, researchers, scholars, and educators to intensely study dances of the African diaspora. And currently, she is also the director of the Fine and Performing Arts at Young Audiences Upper School located in New Orleans, Louisiana. So I'll let, and we'll be moving around since we're doing this live streaming, and this is kind of like the point. I'll get out of the way.
How y'all doing? I'm gonna pick up the mic. I'm gonna roll already. So I need to stand. So I'm here to do the blessing. It's starting, you'll see me a little bit later in the program with another section. So I'm gonna ask everyone just please close your eyes. And let's take a collective breath in, counting in on 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold that breath. Exhale out. 4, 3, 2, 1. Plant your feet firmly on the ground. Inhale in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. You guys can open your eyes. I'm here to give honor first and foremost to our ancestors, indigenous people who walked this earth of New Orleans, Louisiana. I want to say Ibaye. Repeat after me, Ibaye. Ibaye. It just means blessings, okay? All right. To the enslaved Africans who crossed the transatlantic slave trade and worked here and built this beautiful city, I say Ibaye. To my ancestors who brought me up here, born and raised. To my grandmother who lives right across the canal, Lillian Sepp White, Ibaye. To my father, who was an athletic director and coach and pillar here in New Orleans in the education world, Emil White, Ibaye. If you want to think about any ancestor who has touched your life, who's, in a pleasant way, in a promising way, in a loving way, who in a guiding way, I'm going to give you a moment to think about it. If you feel comfortable when I say go, you can call the name or names. If not, you can just keep it to yourself, okay? Then give you a moment to think. Ready, set, go. All right, say Ibaye. Here sitting as a collective, clear minds, clarity, understanding. We ask for open roads right now as we are coming. Standing rich dialogue. Yes. We're asking also that you guys form a kinship. We ask that the higher being, creator, whoever you believe in, bless this space and this time. Ashe.
Thank you, Kelly. So we're going to get started with our first part of the event today. I'm going to introduce all of our people that are joining us from all over the Caribbean, and I'm going to start with Helen Ceballos. And she'll wave. Helen is a Caribbean cross-border performance artist, photographer, self-taught video artist, producer, manager, and activist who happens to be now based in Puerto Rico. She studied at the National University of Art in Buenos Aires, Argentina, with a major in performance, production, and new media. In 2012, she created Mezcolanza Artistic Platform in order to produce and promote festivals and artistic residencies. And Mezcolanza has kind of evolved into this community-based events, to focus on community-based events. She was currently director and curator of the Caribe Mar de Islas Performance Encounter and directs the project Plataforma Axis from Espacio Cultural Pública in Santurce, Puerto Rico. She also organizes and coordinates as an activist, support and supply brigades on the island between Maria and Fiona. Actually, when we spoke to Helen when she checked in, somebody asked her how she was doing, and she replied, huricanada, right? Hurricaneated is what she responded. And as well as health fairs that offer comprehensive holistic health services and programming for women. We also have with us Michelle Hinkson Cox from Barbados. She's an educator, playwright, producer, director, and artist researcher specializing in Barbadian and heritage-based work. Her professional training began in 1997 at the Barbados Community College, an institution to which she returned to work in various capacities. She's a founding member of the two theater companies in Barbados, Rema Artistic Consultants and Theater Services, and Bimprov. She has written and produced more than 15 original productions while at the BCC, the community college, and many of them in collaboration with the Barbados Museum and Historical Society. Michelle's work has been recognized internationally, and she's been selected as fellow of the London-based Royal Society for the Encouragement of Arts, Manufactures, and Commerce. And finally, today we'll be focusing on our guest artists, because Michelle and Helen will be here as responding to the work that some of y'all saw at least part of, El Generalissimo Brujillo, and that was performed by Jose Emilio Bencosme, who's zooming in from the Dominican Republic. He's a theater artist, puppeteer, essayist, and translator with a multidisciplinary vision of knowledge. He's an independent researcher interested in the Caribbean and its cultural and political production. From theater and performance, he is interested in the exploration of the relationship between spaces, objects, and bodies, which I think we could see in the performance, and around sound and materiality in the service of staging. He is currently a member of Teatro Lluvia and Editorial, the editorial house known cultural activist who seeks to generate spaces for collective participation, spaces for theatrical and literary creation and research. He is a and demand better conditions for the benefit of theater professionals and artists in general, and particularly in the Dominican Republic. And finally, I wanted to introduce Fabian Cabrera, who will be our interpreter today. Fabian is from Havana, Cuba. He's been in New Orleans since 2016. He graduated from the University of Havana with a degree in psychology and an MA in population studies. His connection to theater has mostly been primarily as a spectator and a basic enthusiast of all performing arts. And he's been working as interpreter for Open Channel since 2001. So I'd like to welcome all our guests who are zooming in and who are here with us. And we're gonna start with a few words from Jose Emilio Bencosme about his work, and particularly we first have the video, right? I'm sorry, we're gonna watch 2 minutes of the video, and then Jose Emilio is gonna come in and talk to us about it. Okay, great. And a little bit about the play. The play was actually written by a Puerto Rican playwright, Carlos Canales, and was first performed in 2008 in Puerto Rico. And another side note, there are red beans and rice at the table. Do with what you will with that information. And Jose Emilio, por favor, please.
Hello. Thank you, Carolina. We couldn't see the video, but since I know it, I knew which part it was. So let me just put some reminder of the time. Well, I first want to thank this opportunity of talking about this piece, which explores many things, and there's many ways of talking about it. But I will just focus on two main ideas. One is related to the presentations, to the performance, and is the question we had, or the idea that we had to explore the movement and body, or let's reframe it, the idea of exploring identity through the movement and the body. So there's this whole set of Caribbean rhythms and dances, and very sexualized also movements to question these ideas of what the Caribbean identity is said to be, and also the Dominican in particular. But we always talked about Caribbean because, since, as you said, the play was written by a Puerto Rican playwright, so we were always having this communication in terms of what are the preconceived ideas of what the Caribbean identity is through movement, through the exploration of dance, and like baseball as the codes of the performances. And also there is this idea of contrasting movement between the fluidity of the dance and also the strong movements, because it is said to, or the idea of the play is to explore the killing, the genocide of Haitians by the dictatorship of Trujillo. So these were the things that we were exploring. And the other idea that I have is like is more content-wise, because we were actually exploring the idea of nation as a fiction, and all this toxic, violent masculinity that came from this authoritarian regime that is still kind of present in the daily life of Dominican Republic and maybe in some Caribbean societies. So there's also this question on the influence of neo-imperial influences on the island, and mainly the United States and France influence on the Dominican Republic. So all these codes were like blended together, and were the ideas that we wanted to explore. And just to close and listen, because I'm very excited to listen to what other people might have seen and think about the piece, but how this crossing between authoritarian politics and the ideals that are constructed in the Dominican Republic, because some people say that the Dominican dream can be summarized in being a baseball player, a politician, or related to drug
traffic.
Drug trafficker.
drug dealing. So those are the aspirations of the actual of the current Dominican society. So that was also present there. How do we question and deal with this violent reality in a play? And I will leave it there.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jose. And Fabian will be her interpreter. Say Emilio, and now we're gonna turn to Helen, who will give her thoughts on the play and
Hola, muchísimas gracias por este espacio para seguir reimaginando el teatro caribeño que hacemos.
Thank you for this space to keep reimagining the space of Caribbean theater that we make.
A mí la obra de José Emilio me parece muy potente porque carga sobre sus hombros un contexto histórico.
I think the play is very potent because José Emilio is carrying over his shoulders a deep historical context.
Un contexto histórico que responde a 30 años de dictadura de Leónidas Trujillo, presidente de la República Dominicana.
And it's carrying the history of 30 years of Leónidas Trujillo, the president of, previous president of the Dominican Republic.
Que durante su mandato, como bien cuenta y relata en la pieza, hubo una masacre enorme de la comunidad haitiana, que es la isla continua a República Dominicana.
And like it's depicted and it's kind of talked in the play, during his residency there was like a huge genocide of the Haitian population, which is the island next to the Dominican Republic.
Esta masacre se llamó la masacre del Perejil.
It's called the massacre of Perejil. I don't know.
Parsley.
Oh yeah, the Parsley massacre was the name of the genocide.
Y quiero traer esta anécdota porque parte del cuento y del nombre es que pronunciando la palabra perejil se podían identificar las personas que eran de Haití en relación a las personas que eran de República Dominicana y así sus ejecutantes sabían a quién debían disparar o no.
And I'm bringing this story up because the way of people from Haiti would pronounce the word parsley in Spanish, which is perejil, that would be the way that they could be identified and then shot.
Y José Emilio tiene la valentía de encarnar este personaje tan polémico como lo fue Trujillo.
And José Emilio has the bravery of play this character that is like a very polemic character in the context of the history of the Dominican Republic.
Un personaje misógino.
A very misogynistic character.
Un personaje patriarcal.
A very patriarchal character.
Un presidente que quería, como dice una de las líneas, dice, Trujillo quiere que la República Dominicana sea blanca. Un presidente racista contra su propio pueblo.
A very racist president against his own people. Helen was quoting a piece that was saying that Trujillo wanted a white Dominican Republic.
Y es un personaje muy complejo de representar. Así que felicito a nuestro compañero José Emilio por encarnarlo y por presentarnos tantas caras, ¿no? de este mismo ser, desde la jocosidad del baile y el deporte.
And it's a very complex character to portray, so I congratulate José Emilio for portraying him like that and for presenting the different aspects of this character and to bring together within this play the joy of the dance and also the sport to contrast it with the character itself.
Gracias, ahí lo dejo.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Helen. And we'll pass already to hear Michelle's comments. Michelle, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I want to say that I agree totally with Helen's comments. But I want to look as well at some of the more performative elements. I think Helen touched on a couple of things that I was quite interested in as well. One of the things that strikes me very strongly when you watch this particular performance is the kind of Brechtian elements that come out in the performance. And I want to ask the question, and hopefully kind of provide some semblance of an answer to it. Is it really Brechtian or is it Caribbean? Because I think we tend to look to Europe for a definition of our own style. And there are definitely some similarities between what I think is, characteristic of Caribbean performance and what we see coming out in the Brechtian style. So I just want to highlight a couple of things that come out for me from Jose Emilio's performance. And the first thing that kind of hits you in the face is the staging of it. It's very open, it's minimalist. You don't have a clear demarcation between the audience and the actors, the playing area. And we know that that is very much what some would say is a Brechtian style. However, I want to suggest that it's also a very Caribbean style, because if you look at a lot of our indigenous populations, we come out of a very oral tradition kind of history. We do storytelling, we do kind of community performances where those features are also very much in play in those spaces. And of course, Jose Emilio's performance, we see the embodiment of different characters by the female actors. So they're changing in view, where there's no kind of magic to it. We see them changing, we see them the Afro-Caribbean context, and it's embodying these different characters. And again, certainly in storytelling, I'm more familiar with something we do. We tell a story in normal life, everyday life, and we become the characters. We change our voice, we change our movement, we change our antics, and we become these multiple characters in the middle of telling one story. We also see in the performance, what Brecht has come to call montage. So there is this kind of juxtaposition of all of these smaller scenes that give you quite an interesting idea. Now, I personally was not familiar with Trujillo before. So certainly the use of montage in this context, it gave me a much better idea of who this man was, the complexity of his character as well. And I think Jose Emilio did an excellent job of kind of weaving together a very complex tapestry to give us that idea of who is Trujillo. The use of justice as well, I think, is in there, especially in terms of the sexualization of the character. And we also have evidence of the breaking down of the fourth wall. So the audience gets involved. They're involved, they're invited to clap along, invited to sing along. There really is no clear separation of the audience where we say, okay, no, you're just here to watch a show. There's a direct communication between the actors and the audience. Elements of our Caribbean, particularly popular theater. And I think in a lot of ways, while all of these elements are Brechtian in a European context, they are very much performance. You see it across the region. You see it in almost any group that performs popular theater in the English or the Spanish or the French-speaking Caribbean, the Dutch-speaking Caribbean as well. And I really want to commend and it remains very much Emilio for the way that he's put these elements together. Story. It does not feel Eurocentric. It feels like we are telling our own story. And I think that's where I'm going to pause for now with my comments, and then you'll come back.
Okay, great, Michelle. Thank you so much. So now we're kind of entering the Q&A section, but I'm first going to go to our panel and see if they have any specific questions for Jose Emilio, or is Jose Emilio, would you like to respond first to some of the things you heard?
I just want to say thank you to Helen and Michelle. And yeah, I actually we were not thinking about Brecht when we were doing this, but it was, there are obvious elements, and it came to the conversation when we were presenting this performance. It came into what people reacted, but we were not, if Brecht came to it through it was because of the playwriting or whatever, but we were not thinking on staging the play, thinking about Brecht. So I think it's very accurate to say that this is the way the popular theater in the Caribbean kind of creates. Sometimes we can make the blend or make the connection to the European, but we were not thinking about that European idea. So it's quite interesting to hear that view. Okay. Just wanted to say that.
Great, wonderful. Michelle or Helen, do you have any questions? Specifically for Jose Emilio?
That I agree with one. There's not an intention to portray the Eurocentric. Jose Emilio is saying, you know, there really is no necessary. It's not style, and the reason I highlighted it in this case is because I think that other people who are watching it may think, oh look, this is Brecht, but it really is Caribbean. So in absolute agreement with you, Jose Emilio.
Wonderful. Any questions? Helen?
Yo tengo yo tengo una idea que me nació en mi corazón viendo el video de la obra, y me gustaría poder preguntársela al autor si esto que voy a contar formó o no parte de sus reflexiones para hacer este trabajo.
Helen came up with an idea when she was watching the play, and she just wanted to ask Jose Emilio if that was something that he thought about when he was preparing the work.
El juego de pelota que hay entre los piratas y los aguiluchos es una secuencia espejada también con la batalla que puede haber entre la población dominico-haitiana y contra la xenofobia.
Essentially, Helen is asking if there is a parallel between the baseball play between the two teams, which I don't remember the names.
Piratas
and the Pirates and the Eagles. And if there's a parallel between that use of the baseball play and the fights and between the population from the Dominican Republic and the Haitian population in terms of like xenophobia.
Well, we could ask Carlos Canales. Puedo contestar también a Helen en español, but I will make it in English, and Fabian, please. So it's to keep the time. Quiero, o como prefieran. We could ask Canales, which is the one who wrote the play, but our idea or game plays two roles. One, for our reading of this first staging, is that the baseball is the portrayal of the genocide. It's the way that you are telling us, or we are telling you that this massacre happened. But it's also a way of saying or including the presence of the United States as an invading force in the Dominican Republic, and the responsibility that the United States has in the development of the dictatorship of Trujillo, because Trujillo was trained by the United States Army while they were in the Dominican Republic from 1916 until 1924. And he came into power 6 years after that. And baseball came in that time. So there's a direct relationship between the use of baseball in the dictatorship and the influence of the North American troops in the Caribbean that made possible someone as Trujillo. So I think that these are the ideas that we took as a view of the baseball as the presence of the United States and the influence, the political influence, and also the way of saying this political influence also can be like the whiteness and all these ideas that made the genocide are the ones that were provoked, like through this. I don't know if I made myself clear, but that's how we kind of thought about the baseball game. But there's also, there could be this other reading that Helen is saying, but we could ask Panelist also. He's not here, but like we could write an email and he will be gladly responding.
Fabian, did you want to interpret that?
Esencialmente, José Emilio estaba hablando de el juego de pelota juega dos roles fundamentales desde el punto de vista de cómo ellos lo interpretaron, y es de la representación en sí del genocidio. Si recuerdas el texto, Helen, el juego de pelota es como una paliza realmente de un equipo hacia el otro. Y el otro elemento es destacar también con el juego de pelota la responsabilidad de los Estados Unidos en toda la dictadura de Trujillo, porque Trujillo se entrenó siguiendo preceptos norteamericanos, y en ese sentido también destacar la influencia de los Estados Unidos en la ideología también de la supremacía de la raza blanca, y que todo eso juega un papel en la existencia y en el desarrollo de Trujillo como figura política en el contexto dominicano, y desde esos dos sentidos. Y se podría preguntar directamente al autor de la obra, Canales, pero realmente así fue como lo interpretaron ellos, pero que obviamente puede tener la metáfora del juego de pelota en la obra, puede tener está abierta a otras interpretaciones.
Right, absolutely, and just to comment on the baseball sequences as well, like this is nationalism, right, and distraction, pastime and distraction, how sports play that role. And as Fabian pointed out, like the utter violence that is used to describe this, right, and how we've internalized kind of all these violent discourses and how they're used constantly. Any other questions from our panel?
Quería solamente agregar cómo esto mismo que está diciendo Carolina, el baile, la botella y la baraja, servían en este momento como el opio de los pueblos para poner la mirada en otro lado y asentar un terreno de entretenimiento y de distracción mientras se cometía un genocidio de esta categoría.
Yeah, Helen was just going over the importance of distraction in this historic time, the distraction for the population in terms of like drinking, gaming, as a way of distraction to kind of forget what's going on with the reality of the country.
Great, thank you. Wonderful. Do we have any other questions? I have one before we go into the público. I want to talk a little bit about the question of race, the topic of race, the reckoning with race that this play requires. I think it's interesting that it's written about a Puerto Rican, but it refers to Trujillo and the Dominican Republic. and that I'm aware of, and I know a little bit about Dominican theater, but I'm wondering, why did you choose to perform this text, Jose Emilio? And because from what I understand, that reckoning with race is something that all of the Caribbean is still dealing with, all of Latin America is dealing with, particularly the Caribbean. But I know for sure the Dominican Republic still struggles with that very much, and I wanted to know what was the decision behind choosing that performance and choosing that, that play.
We studied and we were, okay. We actually having conversations with Canales because he wrote 3 plays based on or trying to reflect the 3 dictatorships in the Caribbean. I don't remember which were the 3, but one of them was about Papa Doc in Haiti, and the other one was this one, and the Brujillo, and I don't remember which was the 3rd dictator. I don't know if it was Batista or I don't really remember because we were mainly focusing, or after we read them, we were discussing if we were going to deal with Papa Doc and or Trujillo. So we were always trying to talk about the relationship of the Dominican Republic with Haiti, which is a topic that it's always present because there's this nationalism idea that there's a problem with Haiti, like they are going to invade us, that they are evil, whatever those like narratives that we are against. So we wanted to deal with that topic. It was not the main idea of, or the main like decision point that we had. But it was present, and it actually becomes relevant in the like I think we should stage this again because now we are dealing with almost Nazi like fascist groups in the Dominican Republic that want to they are violently attacking people and attacking Haitians living in the Dominican Republic and people that are fighting for human rights. Like we are dealing with these issues today. So it's not something that just happened in the Trujillo dictatorship. So it's still present. And when we were doing this play, it was not as divisive as it is now, but we were seeing these patterns. So I think that played a role. We mainly, one of the things we were focusing was gender, actually. Because that's why we focus on the toxic masculinity, the idea that violent society that we are kind of dealing with. Trujillo was, and it's the idea of the macho and how this is present in the. So it was both things, but that's why all of my partners were women. Like we were trying to work this idea of the macho and all that surrounds the macho in the Latin American Caribbean society. Mm-hmm. So it's both ways, but gender played in a way a more important role to talk about this racism, mm-hmm. kind of.
Great.
That's what drove us to take this decision, I think.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Well, yeah, the reckoning with race and masculinity and machismo, absolutely. Something that's very Caribbean that as a theme and the performance. So I'm going to, unless we have any questions with the panel, I'm going to turn the not literally turn the mic over, but does anybody have any questions that you'd like to pose to our panel or to Jose Emilio? Yes.
I have a question. I forget who, but someone mentioned that in the performance of the audience was like an active participant, and they were really part of the show. And I was just wondering why that was so important and why that creative choice was made in this production.
And what's your name? Anna. Anna asked about the choice of including the audience. Why is that important to this play, or having the audience, having the line, the fourth wall between the audience and the performers kind of not there? Why was that important, Jose Emilio?
It's a way of saying, I can relate this to what Helen said, and also how sometimes we can be complicit with genocide. It's a way of saying, yeah, I'm showing you all these things, and it's a baseball game, and come on, say, like, applaud and be happy, but I'm telling you something really, really nasty that is going on, and you still applaud, you know, like, it's a way of playing with this idea how sometimes these things, it's not obvious, but it's a way of saying these things happen, and sometimes we just clap, you know, sometimes we just stay behind, and we just accept that this is happening. The play's text, because so it was more like a code that came through it's like the moments that he goes to the audience is mostly seeking for approval of the things that Trujillo did. And sometimes we received one answer of someone like, in a moment, like, I was applauding in a moment. I was like, oh, but this is the moment that they were killing me. So I just applaud because I was in the performance. But some people actually made the connection of yeah, I know it's theater, I know but you made me think how sometimes we just see the things and we just don't say anything. Obviously, there's a lot of audience response, like they're not going to interrupt the performance, but that's a way of making people think about that. And it actually worked because at least two people, as I remember, kind of make this idea like, I hated you, but I still loved you, you know? So that's the way of what we wanted to do, to make this character, in a way, something that could be appealing, but that you could also reject. So that's why we chose to take the audience with us in that sense.
Okay. Right, thank you. Any other question? We have time for one more question. Oh, yeah. Matt has a question.
I'm curious, actually, a question for the audience about Trump.
That was going to be my question.
Yeah.
So Matt wants to ask the audience about Trump.
Yeah.
The what?
Trump? About President Trump?
Matt, I was going to say, but then I hesitated because I didn't want this to come across as a colonialist reading. But it was the first thing that came when you started grabbing your crotch. And then I was in that experience of just seeing this is how that works. Like, I think the play really allowed me to step into the chamber and to see how the ego is fed and the sexualization of everyone around him. You know, it was just impossible for me to watch and not lay that recent experience on.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm wary of it because I know that this is
Right. But and an archetype, right? A type and an
also referring to a very specific history.
archetype, right, that we now have experienced here, right? Absolutely, great. Yes?
A lot of young American men, including Kanye West, for instance, or EA, have talked about how they're attracted to Trump because of his masculine energy. Those are the terms they use, his masculine energy, and that they find that appealing. And so a lot of young people who you wouldn't expect to be Trump supporters necessarily have come out as Trump supporters.
Well, I teach a class on Latinx studies, and we talk a lot about the presidential election, and we've listened to podcasts from Arizona into South Florida, and the young Latinx, people coming from Cuba, people of Venezuela, and even Mexican Americans in Arizona, they're like the masculine energy, right? That's what has them voting. Well, they don't say that. They say other things like he's self-made millionaire, all these things, but then that's very attractive to them. It's something, I don't know. And it's interesting that we're experiencing that here now, right? Great. Okay, so I think, thank you, Jose Emilio, thank you to the panel, to Michelle, to Helen. They're gonna stay on while we do the next step, which is we have a couple of minutes to stretch a little bit before our somatic, before Kelly takes over. We're gonna move into this space right over here and do some exercises. So you have like a 3 or 4 minute break, stretch, maybe a few beans in between, and then, or before or after. And so yeah, that'll be 15 minutes. Well, we'll be starting in about 4 minutes. So over in this space right here.
Thank you, Carolina.
And our panel will continue as well. Go on, and we'll have a Q&A after the somatic session as well that they'll be a part of it. The performance, I think, I think it was in 2017, 16 or 17. Yeah.
I was in a definitely thought. And so I was curious when that could be, because it was the year that all the election. Incredible.
Okay. No, I think really great, but I also think it's, I mean, because recently they had a book fair in March, and they had to shut down. They had to cancel 3 or 4 events because it was Haitian authors, Haitian Dominican authors, Dominican authors paid dissent, and white supremacist skinheads had threatened to firebomb. So they had to cancel like 4 or 5 events. And like, and the person who came in and was talking about attorneys, Ingrid Luciana, also a former, and she's talked about how, yeah, she was in the, she said that the skinheads are, she goes, it's absolutely, like, we have a community decolonized school now, we have proud books, but she's just like, that all happened in March, so I think it's what he's talking about, tighten down.
Yeah, I would love to, next one down there.
He's super excited. Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
We'll connect you. Just let me know.
Okay.
I can introduce you.
Okay, I appreciate that. My name's Mia.
I'm Carolina. It's great to meet you.
I said our neighbor is right over there.
It's nice and juicy. To your shoulders. Head moves. Nice. Shoulders. Add your elbows. And you go through the entire arm. Lateral, you're gonna do opposite arm, sagittal plane. You don't have to stay in one area. Wrist, fingertips. Making sure you're breathing. Good, ankle. Bring it to your knees. Any way you feel. To your hips. Add your torso. In our, they put me in the corner, but I put myself in the corner. To our movement to create a new language or uncover in our way of using somatics and connecting to theater and art is to investigate and bring mind things like someone said, to bring words or voice, to bring movement and to voices or words that's not yet, I would say, you have discovered, right? And another person say trauma lives there. So it comes into our foreign practice of unblocking areas of trauma. And then from there, awakening awareness, understanding of conceptually how we move in space and in the arts to develop the way your character moves in the space. Yes? So let's do a little investigative work. Let's talk, okay? Okay. I'm gonna go as far. I'm gonna be gentle. Okay, good. Let's talk, okay? We were able to watch the clip of the video, correct, of the play. Then in addition to that, we had our moment of this listening to the panel, asking each other questions, giving feedback, and then we were invited into the space to ask questions too, right? From that, all those things we collected, can we think of, or can somebody give voice to, don't be scared, I do not bite, what you noticed or felt, hearing, seeing? I'm gonna give a moment. And I just want you to popcorn out answers, okay? I'm not calling anyone. Okay, moment's over. Let's go. Popcorn out. What did you feel? What did you see? What did you sense? In response to, yes, that side. All of the above, because you only saw a snippet of a piece. You didn't see the entire play, but the talk discussed the play almost in its entirety. Yeah. Camaraderie, okay. Okay, from the panelists. Yes, good.
I felt myself like initially kind of like moving and going, oh, Camargue. And then I was like, oh wait, what's happening here? And maybe it wasn't that little clip, but I was like, I started realizing like that it was, I don't know, it was sort of that familiar, but like, oh wait, but there's something different.
Underneath it, there's something a little bit more serious to look at.
Was it weird? It was like going like this at the end. And
Yeah,
and I also, yeah.
he was flipping us off. Yeah.
I feel like a fluidity between like disconnect and connect, because I felt some of the camaraderie, but I also felt like between cultures and languages, there's some things that can't be repeated when translated in the same way that when she shared it in the first place. And we're here and we're like new to each other, some of us, and then new to them, and so it felt like coming in and out of a lot of spaces a bunch. But I had to like really focus in.
Good. You second that?
Yeah, I was picking up on even the anti-blackness, even within the Caribbean conversation, as they were talking about the myths about Haiti and how Haiti is looked at even amongst the other Caribbean nations.
Good, yeah. I remember I saw somebody else. Was it? No? Okay. Going once, going twice. Everybody got it out? Yes.
I felt angry about the layers of violence that we're hearing about and how they resonate generation over generation.
Yeah. Exactly.
I felt the inadequacy of a play as
Yes.
a U.S. impact
Yes. Okay, nice. Okay, so now let's zone into the play. You saw the clip of the big dancing part, which I think they did it because, you guys about to move a little bit more. Okay, what body parts you saw, what language you saw? Let's start off with body parts. What body parts did you see moving? Hips, a lot of hips. Shoulders, what else? Feet. Did you see any pathways happening? A lot of circular movement as far as pathways, carving out the space. What do you think some of the symbolism behind what he chose as movement gestures and pathways, what do you think that connects to? Like circle means like if we're in a circle, so we are what? What are we? What, a collective, a community, a group, right? Something that doesn't break. You're containing me. I'm in the middle of the circle, right? So anything could be happening. Like I can't see what's happening over there. I can't see what's happening right now. I can only see Brad's hat and his glasses. I'm being like contained, right? What else? What about the movement? What did that symbolize?
Stomping all over that space.
Yeah.
And claiming it.
Conquest, yes.
I started to understand it more as the border. And then he was manipulating around that.
Uh-huh. Yes, yes. Anyone else? No? Okay. Do me a favor. Take what we have, right? The body does not lie. The body is part of the story. The collected, understanding somatic learning. The body is the character, correct? Take all the little dialogue we had about the conquest, the border, the masculinity, the strength, the FUs, a lot of the gestures. And I want you guys right now to just put it inside, because I'm going to call on it a little bit. We're just going to start walking. Find your own path in this space. You can walk forward, you can walk backwards, you can walk sideways, you can walk in circles, but take up space, okay? And go. I'm going to ask that you do not look at anyone right now. Gazing downward. Avoiding eye contact. Now bring that awareness up. Start looking at some of your people. Look them up and down. You can look past them. You can smile with the eyes. What about that? Yes, moving backwards. Diagonal circles. You can find any space you want. Now freeze. Freeze. We're going to start moving the pelvis. I want you to move it any way you want to, but think. Okay, we're going to look at the pelvis. About connecting to your breath and let the pelvis go. Take the pelvis for the ride and walk with the journey. Travel with the pelvis leading you. Freeze. Now with the pelvis, we're going to do vibratory movement. Because in the play, he was a lot of pelvis forward, thrusting movement, walk. Take it to a different accent. And freeze. Using your hand. any way you want to use your hand, any hand, both hands. Of slicing through something of conquest, yes? What is your gesture of that moment of effing the world? Look through in that space and go. Yes. And freeze. A little bit faster. Little bit stiffness. And go. And freeze. So next we're going to go into the movement of finding your strength, okay? Your strength, your fighting, okay? Any type of way, I'm not gonna give you a body part anymore. I want you to figure out what that looks like in your body. The fight, the conquest. I'm gonna flip it. He was trying to deal with genocide. I want us to fight against the genocide, okay? All right, and go. Bigger. Travel. What about some levels? You might go down low with it. And slow, 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 and slow. Don't forget to eye contact. And your levels. A little bit faster, faster, fast, 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 fast. And freeze. Nice, y'all. Yeah, we're getting warm in here, huh? Stay right there, stay in that character. I want you to think about, we're gonna kind of like use the movement you generated, right? And you created, and we wanna make it into, I would say, a little bit of a phrase, a little sentence. You can choose how you wanna insert it, right? The order, but you're gonna play with it. Watch, my movement was like, ba, ba, right? Any way you wanna play with it, right? As we're thinking about our characters, okay? All right? Start moving slow. Find your character. Faster. Gathering, I see gathering. Nice, a little bit faster. See pushing through. I see hips. A little bit faster and faster. And faster. Nice. A little bit faster, faster. Nice. Move it slow, slow. Slow. Breathing through it and slow. Moving slow. Start connecting with someone. Find the eyes. Moving slow. Moving slow. freeze. Release out of it. Good job, y'all. Give yourselves a round of applause. So I'm going to ask you guys a couple of questions, and then I want to transition to the panel too. Okay, but first I want to check your temperature. How did you feel during this whole exercise? Nervous at first? Why? Okay, I understand. I felt that way too. What else?
I would say building on that with but grateful.
Ashe. Nice. Yes.
I agree. I think that movement-based theater is the kind that I have most difficulty with getting out of my own head, but this is like the most liberating and liberated I've felt doing it because I think it had a real purpose behind it and a real goal.
Ashe. Yeah. Anyone else? 1, then 2, then 3.
I felt an opening in my body parts, just becoming more aware of the joints, the muscles, the connections in my body.
Nice.
I feel a contrast from sitting and like having my body really tight, and now I feel kind of totally loose and warm, and also kind of awake and alive.
Exactly. It's a whole nother feeling. It's like you just, both of you guys, it connect. Like, the opening and the awakening. What about you?
I typically also feel very nervous starting off, but I really like the way you guided us through like the steps, right? So you gave us the tools we needed to just make it happen. So that felt really, like open.
Good. And looking at, I pulled some things. I didn't pull a lot from it. But I pulled a few things from the whole idea of the play we watched, right? Even the storyline. Can you see how this can help you develop characters in work? Embodiment, exactly. Which is mindfulness, number 1, so that you can understand how you can embody and create. Yeah? To my panel, I think we need to shift over for the panel. This is the hardest part, the transition. But thank you, you guys did a wonderful job. To my panel.
Okay, so let's hear a little bit our panelists, because of they had a little trouble hearing what Kelly was saying, but Kelly had sent them what she was planning on doing, so that they were able to connect between the two. Saw the movements. Do our panelists want to have anything to say about what they just? The things that the participants said, I was WhatsApping them what y'all were saying towards the end. Helen, ¿usted tiene algo que quería mencionar? Sobre el ejercicio que...
Siempre es muy interesante ver cuerpos moviéndose en el espacio. Yo me puse a bailar también porque no iba a ser. Así que desde acá y con lo poquito que pude apreciar, o sea, escuchar de las palabras de Kelly, pues me disfruté pararme y moverme un rato, aunque sea en soledad, pero en comunión con ustedes ahí.
Right. So Helen took the opportunity to get up and move with us. She was inspired to do so.
Helen led a session very much like this when we were in July in Santiago.
Okay.
Right? And Monique Moss was here in New Orleans. For those of you know her, doing a reverse version. I'd be interested for Helen to speak about how what her experience of was trying to do this from Santiago.
Helen, Matt quería saber, como ya que tú hiciste como lo mismo en Santiago para el festival, como que usted como manejó este proceso allí, ¿qué le pareció esa experiencia en Santiago y verlo desde este punto de vista?
Bueno, nosotros venimos de un ciclo de pandemia donde cualquier encuentro presencial por ahora todavía sigue teniendo el aura de ser algo novedoso.
Okay.
Y
Un momento, Fabian, are you going to
Yeah, I
okay,
can.
Wonderful, fantastic.
Helen is talking about the novelty of meeting in person still, because we're still coming out of the pandemic, and there's that novelty, that idea of like, oh, I'm meeting people, I'm doing things with people.
Por lo tanto, reunir personas, hacer que se muevan juntas, que se toquen, aunque sea solamente superficialmente, unir sus manos y hacer un reto.
It is still challenging to
Tener vínculos con ese que se entiende como desconocido, pues no deja de ser.
have like an interaction with someone that it's kind of unknown, but there's a still way to connect, to touch hands, to exchange some sort of information.
Y bueno, nosotros somos artistas, así que trabajamos como en el cuerpo y lo resignificamos.
But we are artists and we work with our body, and so we can resignify our bodies.
Y siempre es agradable y bonito compartir los ejercicios que nos ayudan a nosotros a conectarnos con nuestro arte, con el público.
And it's always pleasant and beautiful to share the exercises that help us as artists to connect with our art, to share those exercises with an audience.
Okay. Gracias, Helen. Thank you, Helen. Jose Emilio, do you have any questions or any comments? And Kelly can also
yes.
participate as well in this conversation, her inspirations.
Yeah, it just, I was same as Helen, trying to connect or at least respond to what I was hearing, mostly stretching because I don't have space to move as you were moving. But what I was seeing, it felt like there was actually some live connection, and I can relate this to what Helen just said, and it was like very, like this idea of grounding and expanding, and the body impulses were quite refreshing to see. Like it was like we could see you alive. Someone said something about feeling alive, and even through the video and with the difficulties of hearing, we could see that live impulses in some of the moments of what Kelly leaded the group into. So I just want to thank Kelly and the group for that experience, so we could see how the bodies can actually experience by doing.
I want to say, Jose Emilio, I pull from watching actually the play some of the language that was very common that you used and you chose to use, which was like the gesture of the middle fingers repeated throughout. Also the pelvis. I didn't want to go too graphic of grabbing the pelvis, but that was in my notes, like, okay, maybe we could just touch, but I chose not to do that because I was reading the room and then I could tell someone like, no. Masculine force and energy, and what I enjoyed is seeing, even though I gave them, oh, not comfortable yet. And then the whole idea of force being that masculine. the same prompts that I pulled from you, how it registered and read on each individual body differently, which then, if you think about it, turns it into a whole different language of what.
Yep.
So thank you for that. That's character connect to, as far as movement goes.
Wonderful. Thank you. Any other comments? Unfortunately, Michelle doesn't have any, no internet, so she was on data with her phone with us, and that data has run out. And when she texted us earlier and said, "Oh, my internet just went out," I was like, "Oh, how very Caribbean of you to have your internet go out." Any other questions or comments from the panel and from the group? Yes.
I wanted to ask you, Helen, I was very grateful when you made that switch about what we were doing. You know, like he was pushing genocide forward, but we're going to flip it and push genocide away. I felt like for my body, that freed me. And I wasn't sure if that was part of your plan or just in that moment you knew. I don't know. Tell us about that.
I would say I can't encourage violence. I really can't. My little spirit would like, no. And even in exploring it, I wanted to come from a place of, the Haitian fighting against this. They're still fighting against it. There's a lot of things going on currently where they can't make it across. If they make it across, then they may not make it back alive. And even though that's like a place, especially if they live by the borders, that they could actually go and make income to bring back to their family. So they take that risk every day to choose to go and take care of their family, knowing that they may not come back in full pieces or alive, right? So I wanted to switch the lens a little bit, and it was a gentle switch because we only had 15 minutes to massage this, right? This is something that takes a lot of, not even just body lifting, but, just processing it and all that and breaking it apart. So this was just like a morsel of just shifting the power, Oh, yes, I did. The body doesn't lie. Interpretations, this sis right here was doing more of, no, y'all took command. I saw different come to me, let me protect you. I had very, very clear, you were actually in angles in just doing force this way, which showed that you were like maybe a frontline person, like I'm gonna go where I have to go to take care of my family, right? And this one right here, the lady in the back corner, she was definitely more in, I'm gonna stay grounded in this because I have to make sure I'm ready to attack. So I saw a lot of things just coming out of your bodies that if I wanted to write something, I could, I have about 5-10 different stories, but yeah, I just wanted to shift it because if that shift didn't happen, we would have left here heavy, and I didn't want y'all to leave here heavy.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I think we're going to go to kind of the closing session before we take a tour of this wonderful space with Tomas and Jebny. But we're going to do kind of a popcorn if people just want to make a final comment about this experience, about being here, about combining that exercise with the performance and being able to talk to the performer and having our panel coming from the Caribbean and to discuss. And if we could maybe with a microphone around, right? Anybody want to say anything? Any comments? Oh, Matt, say something.
Well, first off, thank you very much for this. I'm sort of an introverted person, but I do work on the Dominican Republic, and I sort of inadvertently found my way here. But besides a constant struggle, I think, to move out of the head. So this is really besides the struggle that we have as academics to connect to our body, this I'll carry this with me for, going forward in my work and in my life, and trying to find that balance. And it was also important for me to understand and affirm the connections of Louisiana and New Orleans and the Caribbean, and how we think about these spaces and all the connections. So thank you everyone who's been involved in making this experience for us.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I was wondering if Jose Emilio felt vulnerable having everyone talking about his work.
Yes. Actually, I think this is some questions that came after this performance and another one we did in 2017, because as the persons, the people that I work with, we have been seeing how violent the society has become, and trying to deal and take this violence in the body also made me feel, and sometimes with some of my colleagues, this vulnerability. It was actually is this the way we want to talk about this, and how am I putting myself in the forefront, in the exposing myself to this violence that we are seeing. So it was actually quite demanding emotionally and physically, and actually trying to portray in a way that was made the performance honor to the performance, but also portray these things that we are against. So it was a very thin line of vulnerability, but that's kind of what Helen said. That's kind of the job, bringing these things to the body. So yeah, I totally felt vulnerable, and in this play and in the other one we work, mainly because we were dealing with these notions of violence. So.
Amanda, I was just sitting with the words earlier, and you're thinking about for with genocide, that people could stand by and clap, as you framed it, and how quickly that can happen, and how that has happened historically and continues to. And then sometimes we can just sit with pain, but I think you also provided us with a space of connection. And on that positive side, how quickly people were able to go from vulnerability or discomfort or not sure about it to building community and connection in that short exercise, and that you were able to facilitate that. I think just shows me that the power of human connection has both of those opportunities in front of us, and it's really the leaders and the people around us, such as all of you, that will move our world and our countries in different directions. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
So as one of the organizers of the event every year, I'll just talk really quickly. There was a second purpose. There was a second purpose to this workshop with you, is we're recruiting. We need volunteers. We need folks to help us online. Go to Cuba in July for the Festival del Fuego, and in Cuba, if you're interested in going to Santiago, the largest pan-Caribbean festivals in the region, follow up with me. And the postcards that we handed out, if you don't have one, you should get one on the way out. We'll give you more information about how to register. Registration is actually open for July. So if you're interested in being involved. Okay. Well, it's there though. No, we'll have to get you the right one. So we will follow up with an email to everybody who are on the registered list for the workshop. If you weren't registered for some reason and you're here, just make sure I have your email. That was it.
Okay, great. All right, I want to thank Helen, Jose Emilio, Michelle, who had to go, and to Fabian for everything. Thank you for your time, for sharing your work, for sharing your thoughts. Muchísimas gracias, colegas, mis amores. Thank you very much. The gentleman behind the space, behind Canoa, it's a new. And so we're going to close out the session. I introduce Tomas and Jebny, who are space, and they, Tomas, did you want to tell them a little bit about the space and then give them a tour? Howard, did you want to do this?
Yeah, we can share the web. The space is about the Caribbean, the base of the idea, the Caribbean culture, connected with New Orleans, and New Orleans as part of the Caribbean culture. And people in New Orleans, and a lot of people say, New Orleans is the north, whatever, of the Caribbean, pam, 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 pam. But in the daily life and the real people here, they don't see the connection that they are. And as other part of the Caribbean, people think we are unique. New Orleanians are unique, and you cannot find another place similar like that, or better, or more beautiful, or more whatever, or the music and the culture, and we are all over the Caribbean. We have almost the same concept. Cubans are the best, which is almost true. Or Puerto Ricans are, whatever, the music and ta-ta-ta. From Jamaica or from Dominican Republic, and everywhere is, we are like unique, and we are trying to find a place of uniqueness that connect all of us. And we are good and we are beautiful because we are so big and so connected. And the whole concept of this place is related with this concept that we are all part of a bigger story, and much beautiful story than our little place, which is beautiful too, no? And connected all of us. It's a place, it's a culture center, it's a community. It's going to be a community center and culture center. People can meet, mostly in the Caribbean style, like free, no pressure. We can talk about everything. We can eat, we can play, we can dance, and we can know each other. We can meet each other. This is, I think, is my. What about you? Say something about it.
This is the first real kind of public facing event we've done in the space. We actually just got windows there. And it was beautiful and fortuitous to have this flag covering that window. It was a gift of another Imagining America participant who's mad that he can't be here, and we're mad that we can't be there, because he's actually presenting right now in the diaspora.
want to mention, I don't know if they're going to walk you around, but they're planning on having childcare too. Like, so this to be a truly kind of family, I mean, bring that idea of the Caribbean. I mean, I grew up with Cuban parents, and there was not one thing they didn't take me to, right? Like, I stayed with a babysitter for the first time, like when I was 13, when I didn't need one. But my mom was like, oh, we're going out without you for the first time since you've been alive. And so that was one of the first things. They're like, we have to have childcare, we have to have a space for children, because then that's how we can get people in, and that's how we can make this space different as well.
Thank you, Carolina.
Like speaking of that, what we have observed in New Orleans is that New Orleans is a very performative city, very performative, and we wanted to create a space where people can practice performing, but the stakes aren't so high. So where there can be a film screening, but we can set up, we can always have a childcare in the back and food on the side, and there's a film going, but little people can come and go and get their mom and dad and get fed and go where there can be a lecture series, but just that sense of permeability and kind of not so precious or so high stakes.
Is it what you mentioned was on the second and third floor?
Yeah, so this is the main building. There's going to be a side yard that I think that giving you a tour might be a little difficult. I mean, if a few of you want to venture into that, but we're planning on having a green space on the side yard and then access to this main space and that back space and the upstairs through the yard. The back space is a sort of a attached building that's going to be a multi-purpose space with a little kitchen. For childcare can happen, for building something for events or activities, and a large space for a gallery exhibition to happen. This space is going to be, we're hoping to raise the ceiling between these two columns and put in the lighting grid so we can have theatrical productions, but our intention is never to sort of block out the space for the kind of intensities that theater requires, so we can have things on a weekly basis. We're scheming and dreaming of how we can create like a sprung floor that would go down and come up, because we would really love to have dance classes here. We're going to build out this space, and our neighbors have a t-shirt business, so we want to have post their t-shirt factory. I'm trying to think of what else. We want to have a library and resource center here.
And also, barber once in a while, and Domino's.
Organizations and individuals who want to do something here on an ongoing basis, and then train them in with any gear that they need to make that happen, and then just sort of see how it goes. So it would be a little bit of a lab for programming. And then way down the road, in the upstairs, there's a huge attic space that we have permission from the city, but not the funds, to build out into residency and archives and studio spaces. So that's happening this next time. I know a number of y'all in this audience are many years into similar ventures here in other cities, and I would love to reach out at some point and pick your brains if y'all want to join in.
Can you speak a little bit about the acronym Canoa and why you chose it, and I think explain the meaning?
Oh, Jem is an expert in the Canoa description. No, go ahead. He
So Canoa is canoe in Spanish, and it's an acronym. We're using it as an acronym for Caribbean and Northern Alliance. We just really like the idea of this little boat. We picture this as a little boat that can connect lots of different spaces and cultures and communities via water. It's not a galleon, it's a little boat.
Yeah.
But it's also a word with indigenous origins.
Exactly. It's
Uh-huh.
an Arawak word. Yeah, so it was one of the first words, I believe, to sort of infiltrate European language. So we like that kind of ability.
There's like layers of resonance there.
And it is an important symbol of connection in the Caribbean, this moving around. Yeah, dominoes en alcohol, en food. Always.
So yeah, that's the most part. We're getting better at talking.
Are there university connections yet, or are you?
Not yet.
Informally.
A little bit. We are getting there. This is little by little, step by step.
And for being here, you're being here for it.
Right.
I'm super grateful to Matt and to Chanel and to Latin America because this is actually, we talked about, okay, maybe years down the road we could do a thing where we're connecting with a live audience and with an audience across the Caribbean. And then Matt showed up, and then I scrambled and bought a whole lot of gear on Amazon. So we just did that.
Mm. Thanks to Jenny,
Oh, yes.
mainly. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you all for being here. If you had not had beans and rice, please do. There's water over there. I think the bus leaves at 3:30. We're supposed to arrive at 3:30. You have some time just to kind of roam around and talk and ask questions. Thank you very much for being here. Gracias.